Okay, so I'm going to show you how to texture this simple scene. We have a road, a sidewalk, a border for the sidewalk, and a wall along the edge. The trees in the background are made with Forest Pack plugin. They are default trees from the library. We'll just leave them as they are. Alright, so let's see how the scene looks with a simple gray V-Ray material. I've set up the lighting with V-Ray Sky and V-Ray Sun. And there's nothing more complicated to it than just creating the sun and positioning it in the place you like. Right. So let's start by making the road material. Okay, so I'm going to create a new V-Ray material. And I'm going to rename it to road. Right. So since this road is a bit curved, it's not perfectly straight, I'm going to show you how to create a custom texture for it. First we need to export the UV template. So I'm going to add an unwrap UVW modifier, and I'm going to open up the UV editor. So here you can see the UVs of this object. I'm going to render out this template and I'm going to paint a custom texture for it in Photoshop. So go to Tools, Render UVW Template, and set up the width and height to pretty large values, like, let's say 6000 by 6000 pixels. Okay, maybe even larger. I'm going to use 8 by 8. And render. Okay, once that's done, you can save the image. And you can load it up in Photoshop. Okay, still saving. And here it is. It's a bit hard to see on this low resolution. I'm gonna invert the colors by pressing Ctrl+I. Here you can see our template. Right, let's duplicate this layer and set it to darken. This way only the black line will be visible on top of the lower layers. Okay, so let's start creating the texture. First thing we need to find is a decent source image for our asphalt texture. So I'm going to go to cgtextures.com and I'm going to look for some road images. Right, so here we have a pretty decent selection of road photos. Just find something you like. Okay. So I think I'm going to use something like this one here. Okay, I'm going to download one of these source photos. I'm going to take the huge size and open it in Photoshop. Right. Now using the selection tool, I'm gonna create a selection like this. I'm gonna copy it. And I'm gonna paste it here in our UV template just below the top layer. Right, I'm gonna position it vertically. I think we can make our texture a bit larger. I'm gonna undo this and increase the texture size to 10,000 pixels. If the road is gonna be seen close up, it's better to have enough resolution. Right, and paste. I'm gonna try to center it. Bring up the contrast of the UV template so we can see the black lines better. Okay, like that. And I'm gonna scale the texture a bit smaller to fit the size of the road. Alright. Let's duplicate this layer by pressing Ctrl J, and let's drag it up. I'm gonna erase the lower part here with a large soft brush to blend it together with the lower layer, like this. And let's duplicate the layer again. Alright. So I think this might be good. And what I want to do is transform the shape of the road to fit this curve in our 3D object. I'm going to merge down the layer. I'm going to select this part here, duplicate it, Ctrl J, and I'm going to transform it by using the puppet warp tool. Right, so now I'm going to place some pins over here to keep these parts in place. And I'm going to drag it like this. You can add as many pins as you need to get the correct shape. It's a great tool. Very easy to make some difficult transforms. I think that's good enough. Okay, so press enter and it transforms it like so. Right. I'm just gonna blend this part a bit better. Oh, perfect. Right, so let's merge these road layers together. I'm gonna use the clone stamp tool to clean up these shadows here. Just alt click on a nice part of the texture pick your source and clone over the shadows. Quick and easy. You gotta make sure that the borders, that the texture goes right up to the border and even a bit further, so there are no white patches on your material. Okay, so I think this might be a good diffuse texture, so I'm gonna save it. Let's save it as JPG. Road diffuse, okay, and save. And once it's done saving, you can try it out in 3D Max. Okay, so let's set up the diffuse texture. Here it is. I'm gonna assign it. And as you can see, it fits the shape perfectly. Right, let's see how it looks. I think it might be a bit too blurred. We can reduce the texture filtering or the blurring here in the map options. Reduce the blur, let's say 0.3. Render. And it's looking a bit sharper now. Right, so that's the basic diffuse. And now we need to create some bump and some reflections as well. Okay. So go back to Photoshop. And I'm going to use the black and white tool to create a black and white version of this. I'm going to adjust the sliders so the yellow stripes are the same value as the rest of the road. This way they will not be bumped up. Sometimes road has these stripes that are actually a bit higher than the road surface itself, but in this case it's just painted on and is the same level as the rest of the road. So I'm gonna make it nice and even. Alright, so let's bring up the contrast a bit with the curves tool. Okay, and what I want to do is make the sides a bit lower than the center. So I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to paint over it with a regular brush with white color. Just along the center here to bring it higher. Like that. And reduce the opacity. Okay, merge down, and using the burn tool I'm gonna darken the edges a bit. Okay, you might want to try different modes, shadows, midtones or highlights, depending on how light your image is here. Alright, so I think this might be a pretty decent bump map. Let's save it. Okay, let's assign it to our material. Right, here we go. And let's reduce the blurring for this to at least 0.1 to make it nice and crisp. Maybe make it a bit weaker. Alright, let's render and see how it looks. Okay, so in this small render it looks pretty decent. We might wanna try a larger resolution rendering to see the detail better. Let's try doubling the size. I think that's pretty good. Now we just need to add some reflections to the road. Okay, so I'm gonna cancel it. I'm gonna go back to Photoshop, maybe increase the contrast for this black and white image. Maybe I'm gonna overlay some dirt over it to give the reflection some variation. Okay, maybe something like this. And download the large size, open it in Photoshop. And copy this part here. Right, just paste it over our base. Make a few copies of the layer. Okay. You can make a quick copy by pressing Ctrl and Alt and dragging the layer up or down. Right, merge them together and try some different blending modes. So I'm going to try something like color burn. And now with the eraser tool I'm gonna clean it up a bit. I'm just trying to make it a bit more patchy. Like that. Right. And desaturate the layer. And I'm gonna save the image. Okay. And let's assign it to the reflect slot. Right, so another thing you want to do is reduce the reflection glossiness. Since the surface of the road is very rough, the reflections are very diffused, so something like 0.4 or even lower, 0.35 might work. Okay, and enable the Fresnel reflections and set it to something like 3 or 4. Let's try 3.5. Let's see how it looks. Okay, so that's a pretty nice basic road material. We can add some more detail to it, for example, by adding, let's say, some sand along these edges here. In real world, the edges along the sidewalk or the border are where some sand or dirt gets collected when the rain falls. It washes it away from the center and it kind of collects along the edges here. So we can try simulating something like that by using V-Ray dirt map in the diffuse slot. We're going to change it from bitmap to V-Ray dirt, actually to mix. Okay, keep old map as submap. We're going to set the second color something like bright red so we can see what's going on better. Right, and in the mix amount we're going to set a V-Ray dirt map. Okay, so I'm going to increase the radius to, okay, let's say 1 meter. And I'm going to swap the occluded color and unoccluded color around. So this way only the occluded parts will show the red color. Okay, so that means these edges where the road contacts the sidewalk should show the effect slightly. Okay, so here's our last render. I'm going to select this little region here. I'm going to re-render it. Now you can see some red along the edges here. We're going to change the red color to something sand colored later, but for now I'm going to leave it like it is. So another thing to make it a bit more realistic, we can use a radius map. I'm going to make one from this texture here. I'm going to increase the contrast quite a bit. Actually, I'm going to invert it as well. I'm going to save it. Road dirt. And let's try using it in our radius slot of the V-Ray dirt map. This should give some variation to the shape of the sand. Okay, so the radius, assign a bitmap, and choose the dirt map. Alright, so let's re-render. As you can see, there's a bit more variation here right now. We can increase it even more by painting over this layer with black and white brushes. I'm gonna paint in some black areas. I'm going to sharpen the result. Okay, let's leave it at normal and make the lower layer a bit brighter. Alright, let's try it out. And back to 3D Max. Now you can see that the areas we painted black do not have this effect at all. And the areas that were left white or brighter have this red color scattered. Okay. And that's fine. Maybe let's increase the strength of V-Ray Dirt by copying the V-Ray Dirt map, pasting it into itself over here in the unoccluded color slot. Maybe let's reduce the radius to 70. Right. Now I want to bring some sand over here. Okay, so that's this area here. We're gonna delete some of the black patches. All that. And resave. So I think that's fine, and we can change the red color to something more like sand. Something brown beige like this, maybe. Maybe a bit brighter. Okay, so you can see these lighter patches of sand along the edges now. Okay, so that's a basic road we have here. You can also try copying the reflect map onto the displacement slot and setting the value to something like 2 for some extra detail. Okay, I'm just gonna check if my displacement is enabled in various settings. Yep. And this is gonna take quite a bit longer to render, so use it only if you need the extra detail. So there you have it, a nice road material